But then getting back to what you said, Sam, like that, and then there's this wave that comes through. And I'm like, man, like, and I wanted to ask you about this too. And this is somewhat related, kind of, it's a trip. And Tony, I mean, you're in a AC/DC tribute band, right? So
yeah.
I don't know about in where you're living in your area there in England, Sam, but tribute bands are now that's it. Like cover bands have almost gone away now. Like you might go out, even casinos are booking nothing but tribute bands. So, and I've met some tribute artists that are very good, but I've done an Yngwie tribute since 2011, and
amazing.
Well, when I had hair, and then I shaved my head, and then I had to put the wig on. Then I hated it. I'm like, oh, this wig, But when I go in and do it, when I go in and I'm preparing for it, I'm not gonna. I don't even know the guy, so I wouldn't take on his personality. But I go there. I go into every musical nook and cranny of what he's doing, and I have to kind of musically become him until the gig, and then after the gig, it's off. But that kind of swings around to identity. And Tony, you've been able to kind of walk away from an AC/DC show, and you're like, "That's it. Take off the shorts, put some pants on." But
well, that's
Sam had. Yeah, but I mean, I have.
Okay, let me just say, didn't mean to point and shout. It takes me a day before the show to actually get into character. So I need to not be around people, and I need to just rehearse the show, and then I mentally slowly start pretending I'm a rock star, which I am not. And then the day of, you do the show, you are the rock star for the 2 hours. And then it's like, when can I get this costume off, please? I just need to be Tony now, because it's not stressful, but it's a lot of energy to go there.
Mm-hmm. I hear that.
Yeah. Wow, I'm negative Nancy today.
Negative Nancy.
Change the... It's understandable, and also it's kind of I think that's probably a healthy attitude as well. Like the gig's the gig. You can't take it anywhere with you. It happened, and
it's a moment in time, and it's done.
Yeah, and it's good fun to pretend to be a rock, pretend, because that's what I love. I was in quite different 80s tributes and different things. Pretending is good fun. I mean, even when I'm playing myself, I pretend to be. I don't even think about it, but you just. I remember talking to Paul Gilbert, and I said to him once, how do you get inspired when you're not feeling inspired? If you're doing a clinic thing and you've got to improvise. He does these amazing 10-minute improvs.
Yeah.
So how do you get the juice going when it feels like you've had your jet lag, you don't like the amp, whatever? Then he said he'd imagine one of his favorite guitarists sitting in the sound booth. And he'll just kind of go into that world of I'm going to show you all my favorite licks I've learned off you. That kind of vibe of sharing and enjoying and being playful and kind of being a character just for a moment, just to get out of that. So it can be quite a help. To get lost in that is not a bad thing. But like Chris was saying, people they live it and they think they are Michael Jackson. I've met a few of those, who really live that world, and they wear sunglasses at nighttime in the car, and it's a personality. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is, and maybe in some ways, not that it was a particular rock star that I was emulating, but in some ways, I kind of went down, or still in maybe some way, the way I dress. I never did dress codes really well. I got offers to play with orchestras, not like harmonic orchestras, but big dance bands that were doing big casino gigs, and I'd be like, what's the dress code? And they're like, well, a tux. And I'm like, I'm not interested. I can't have polyester on my skin. I was not doing that. Sorry, and I would go out and I would come out on stage, dressed, like I said, sleeveless and all that stuff. I mean, I wouldn't go to a jazz gig like that. I mean, I do have respect, but I mean, but I dress like this all the time. So when I would go to a gig, or when I do go to a gig, it's what I wear when I'm walking around at home. There's no difference. I don't, but I think it kind of ingrained in the way where, like, even when I'm around the house, I don't dress like I'm relaxed. You know, I walk around in the jeans that I would wear on the stage and stuff. Like, I don't own a pair of sweatpants. I don't have like clothes that you lounge in, you know, because I'm just like, why would I do that? And then it gets into my head and I'm like, is it because like I'm that wrapped up in an aesthetic that I'm actually, I don't know, like it plays with my head from time to time, even to this day.
But there's also stuff you just like. I mean, you know, there's just what you like. I mean, we all choose to design our houses, whatever, choose the car, choose the guitar, choose, you know, we just got things we like. That's not, you know, that's just part of an expression of yourself. I mean, you know, I think with the tribute thing, I mean, I'm fortunately not being, I'm in a tribute band but I say it's a Queen band, but it's only Freddie who does the dressing up. And we all sort of wear like rock clothes.
Yeah.
And he's also a stand-up comedian. And because Freddie, there's so many like Freddie tributes out there. And we kind of, rather than saying, look at us, we're playing Queen songs, aren't we great? It's more of a celebration of just like, hey, look, we're having fun playing Queen. You like Queen. Let's just get together and have a laugh and enjoy this. You know, so I'm fortunate I don't have to wear the wig. I don't need to wear the wig, but you know, I don't have to have the guitar and all that stuff. I'm very lucky in that environment. But I imagine, Chris, with the Yngwie thing, because that's a player. I mean, I absolutely adore Brian May. I think
so do I. My favorite.
But I mean, he has a big influence on me, but I wouldn't. Let's say I was given a chance to be a Steve Vai tribute, or you know, like it sounds like the Yngwie tribute is a similar thing. It's like somebody you probably had quite an impact at some point in the style of playing, and it might be harder. I imagine if I was to do that, to you know, I'd be practicing that stuff all the time in between, and kind of work concerned because it's kind of technical stuff. You know, making sure it's super accurate. So you have to sort of really live and breathe that on a different level to just playing a few Queen songs.
That's interesting. I mean, I play with a Queen tribute band here in the States, and I'm not going to get into the stories because, I'm fucked up, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I've done some fucked up shit when I've been out there with these guys, and it's great. But to the Yngwie thing, the Yngwie thing, and this is not to sound, I don't want this to come across as if it was easy, because it wasn't. I mean, I grew up on Yngwie, grew up on this guy. Like, I mean, I went to sleep with the head cans on with the curlicue cable into the stereo, like every night, like he was in my world. And the reason I did the Yngwie thing, because it started out as a lark. My bass player, we had our own trio. We were an original band that played a few covers here and there. And we were sitting around my studio one night getting hammered. And we were talking about doing tribute bands as a joke. And he goes, so I said, hey, we should do a Wang Chung tribute. And we'll just do that one song the whole night. We'll just keep doing it. And then he turns to me and we're like half in the bag. And he goes, hey, why don't you do an Yngwie tribute? You know all the stuff. And you know, even on the original stuff, you're playing Yngwie solos in our songs. And I'm like, I said, no one would book it. So he goes, $50. So I emailed a promoter I knew and I said, keep that $50 in your hand. And 20 minutes later, he came back and he goes, not only I'm interested, I have a gig if you want it. So that cost me $50. But I got, it was such a natural thing because when I was playing with my band, I was taking these long guitar solos. Mm-hmm. You know, I was so indulgent. So it was kind of like natural. As a matter of fact, when I started doing the Queen thing, the singer, I did learn it note for note. I had, Brian May was my first time I ever heard an electric guitar. It was Brian May. I remember it was, We Will Rock You. I was like 9 years old.
Or Chris, was it that you understood what the guitar sounded like? I mean, obviously that you heard music.
No, I didn't know what I was 9 years old. And I remember my sister and her friend were getting high in their bedroom. And I'm walking past the room. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, get out of here. And they had just gotten the record. They had just gotten it. Like, I hadn't even heard it on the radio. It was the News of the World record, right? And she goes, and her friend goes, "Oh, would you stop beating up on your little brother? Let him come in." So I come in, I'm 9 years old. They're like, "Here, have some of this." Anyway, they dropped the vinyl on, and they dropped the needle on "We Will Rock You," you know. And I remember my first reaction. I said, "Man, he sounds really pissed off," you know. But I'm like, wow, he sounds angry. Now, I don't hear it coming because I don't know the tune, but all of a sudden it happens. And I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And my sister goes, "You're such a fucking idiot. It's a guitar." And I remember saying, I want to make that noise. And that was it for me. At that point, I said, that's all I want to do. And I ended up, stealing the records from her, I think, all kinds of shit, had the Queen Killers live on cassette, wore it out, everything, So when I got the gig, I was full Yngwie mode at that point. And I went to the gig with a Strat because I didn't have the Ret Special at the time. So the singer was like, "Hey, I like what you're doing, but I tell you what, I'll give you a 7-minute solo in the middle of the show and you can do whatever you want." So in the middle of the show, I did all these Yngwie things with the volume swells and the silliness. And that was the night that Tony, we had Jimmy Bell, another Bell on our show, Jimmy Bell from Autograph.
Mm-hmm.
He was at that show. And he came out to see a Queen tribute, and he came backstage afterwards. He's like, "Dude, I came out to see a Queen tribute. What the fuck is there like an Yngwie thing going on in the middle? What the fuck is going on?" I'm like, it was part of the deal.
Yeah.
but you see, that's what I'm saying, Sam. Like, there was always had to be this caveat for me to, like, I don't know if I could go completely, into that vein. Because even with the casino bands and the dance bands, we were talking to Scott McGill the other day. We were laughing about this because when he was here in Philly, he would play with all these, these orchestras and these dance bands, and he would play it to the vest. And I'd be like, "Why would you do that, man? Why wouldn't you just take it out?" And he goes, and he asked me, he goes, "Why did you?" I was like, "Yeah." We were doing Let's Dance by David Bowie, and I Holsworth the fuck the shit out of that thing. Because I didn't give a shit. But it was also, but I have to admit, it was also kind of a dick move, right? Like I'm not good at this, man. I'm not good at the balance. I got to be honest with you.
It is that's another adapt thing that I guess I picked up was inappropriate solos. I don't like that word because I'm of two minds, right? I'm of two minds. Like I love playing authentic, like playing the authentic part. I actually have a great joy of learning what Nile Rodgers played on that track and learning Vaughan's solo on it, and because there's some cool stuff to learn from that, and it's great. And to play that well, there's a certain amount of satisfaction to that. Mm-hmm. But you're saying about how people lose their minds a bit of this stuff, and I think it's because there's this lack of self-expression. And at the end of the day, Frank Zappa, just play, just be you, like play guitar how you want to play. He doesn't. He didn't want anybody that sounded like him or a certain player. He wanted players that sounded unique and themselves, and they were themselves unapologetically, like Vi at the time, right? He got Vi in. Vi is always going to be even more Vi than he was yesterday, just because he's on that tangent, and that's a really cool thing. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, he is. And even with these modern guys like Polyphia, and people have like such divided taste over that. But it's because actually it's completely fresh. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, it's new, and it doesn't sound like something that happened 5 years ago. And it's people picking up guitar because of it. Sorry, I'm going off on a different tangent here, but just
I think you're absolutely right.
It's so important for your mental health. Like Just Let's Dance for a fusion-y solo. That's a perfect scenario. In my mind, that's great. Go for it. I don't see that, but of course, I've had my fair share of MDs who run the show. Music directors who tell me to remove the whammy bar. It sounds too like a Hawaiian guitar. It sounds like Hawaii and Steve Vai locked in the cabinet. That kind of thing.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah, you with the wiggle stick over here. Listen. Put that in the basket. It'll be returned to you at the end of the gig. Thank you.
That happened.
Sam
That
Bell
happened,
denied.
really?
It's a headline. It's Sam Bell denied the wiggle stick. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But because there's I don't know, where you've both done certain, there's certain gigs where it's a bar, there's certain gigs where it's a corporate event, there's that's a different, and there's certain things where there's a client or there's a football club or I don't know, a wedding or something, and there's these specific parameters that get put around you as a musician, and you can either say no, like with the tux thing, and I've done that at certain gigs as well. Like, sorry, I know somebody who'll do that really well. In fact, I like being able to do that because I can say, look, my mate, you can do that, and he's got a gig. That's great.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, but then there's also just the like, I don't know, different people you work with, and you think, I don't know, it's such a that's the part of the beauty of it as well. Like, and also the humor between band members. I mean, I've done lots of boring wedding gigs where it's just no one's dancing. So the bass player and the drummer start really giving it someone, cool riffs and stuff, fusion fills and whatever. And then now and again, a little bit of something, and it's just, and everyone, the band enjoys it. And some people in the audience start to wake up and they go, oh, people are playing. People are actually playing music. It's not a recording.
Well,
that's a problem, right?
you just hit on something though, and I think this is the thing where it comes down with me, right? Is because and I'd love your insight. I love both of your insights on this. Sometimes, and what I'm about to say is going to sound so fucking pompous. Some people don't know what they don't know.
Oh, I'm right here.
And what I mean by that is, okay. You're doing these shows night after night, you're playing these rooms, and then you go into this zone and you go somewhere okay, if you guys will humor me, we were playing this bar called Jimmy Mac's, real blue collar. We're talking like serious, these cats are coming in after like, building a bridge, they're there to throw down, and they got the game on. Right. And here we are, it's a 3-piece, and we're going to be playing to their backs because it's the fourth quarter and we're going to watch the rest of the game. This one particular night, we're setting up, getting ready to play. And we had one deal with this guy. He was a great guy. He treated us really well. And he liked how wacky I was as a guitar player. And he always encouraged it. He's like, hey man, keep doing that crazy shit. It's kind of fun. So this one night, but he had one rule. Once he unplugged that jukebox, you had to play. There were no exceptions. So, okay, have a problem. Bass player's amp is down. And he's just realizing this. And it's like, we got to go. So I look over at the drummer, and the bass player's like, dude, guys, figure it out. Do something. Well, I had the 8 with me. So I was like, I tell you what. I was with the drummer. I said, just give me a cool funk groove, right? And so I did Pat Martino's impression, his version of Impressions, his recording. And I had the 8-string, so I could kind of cover a couple of parts. Just started playing Impressions. And I'm thinking, this will get him up and ready. And so he finally gets up and ready. But here's something that was happening. Now, this is a blue-collar bar. They want to hear, rock and roll. Everyone at that fucking bar, one by one, started turning around. And that opening Impressions ended up lasting 17 minutes with improvs, and it just blew open. Like, they were freaking out. They didn't even know what it was, but it didn't matter because we were kind of playing for our lives, and we just got so into it that we were, and I started thinking, man, if I could have every gig reach somebody that way, I'm willing to take the risk of having my ass kicked for not playing by the rules, if you will. So I kind of got into that mindset, and that's kind of another thing that I kind of deal with the, when we were talking about the mentality, the mental health thing. It's like, there's still that part of me, that rebel part of me, if you will. That's a really silly word to use for this, but that I just want to push that and see where how okay. I want to be careful here because that sounds like I'm doing it for my ego, and maybe that's true. Maybe there's a bit of that, but it's not about flashing out. It's literally about exploration. And I always had this mantra in my head that I wanted to be a better musician coming out of a gig than I was going in. And I think, Sam and Tony, you and I may have spoken about this before, that reason I have a problem playing authentically, besides the fact that I think I just suck at it, but is that I'm always looking to go somewhere. I need to find some place to go. I'm not saying I make it. I don't make it all the time, but I kind of feel this need to do it. And I am as disappointed as much as I am sometimes very happy with, like, oh, look what I did. Even though I'm getting the evil eye, you know, where like, you motherfucker, what the fuck were you thinking? You know, like that we were playing the same venue. I'm sorry to go on about this, but we were playing the same venue, and we were doing, speaking of Robin Trower, we were doing Two Rolling Stoned. Now, for the whole tune, we're playing it to the vest. You know, I love Trower. And at the end, you know, that kind of shuffle, 12/8 kind of thing. So I'm in a mood, and I've had a few cocktails in me. So we start to build it and build it and build it. Now this song would take up, we would sometimes play it an entire length of a set. If it was a 40-minute set, we'd do a 40-minute version of it. And the joke was always like, that's the Japanese import note for note. You're going to love it. So we were playing, and I'm up there on stage, and I'm going for it. I'm like, you know, all of a sudden I look over, and this dude had gotten up from the bar, walked up onto the bandstand, and is in my ear. Hey man, when are you going to bring this in? I'm out on a date and I want to dance. When are you going to bring this in? And it was just like, imagine being snapped back to earth, you know. And now I'm not a happy dude. So I've got a couple of Guinnesses in me, a whiskey. I'm 6'2", probably pushing 300 pounds. And I just bring my fist up and I pull it down so the band stops. And I go to the microphone and I just eviscerate this guy on the microphone. And I felt horrible for doing it. But it was like, wait a minute, man. I'm doing my thing. How dare you? But at the same time, he wasn't wrong. You know, he was kind of like, yo, man, I'm on this date, and I kind of would like to have some time with my girl dancing. And you're sitting there playing, I don't know what, you know. And who knows? Maybe that's probably why I do podcasts. You know, I don't know, man. I'm just